We have financial rail with the recently announced and launched digital Dirham stablecoin, which is founded by IHC and the First Abu Dhabi Bank. ADI is fully permissionless chain with a stack for the institutions that to build the hybrid subchain. Dirham itself as a currency in recent years, and it will be more and more, got lots of attention globally, internationally.
Okay, guys, welcome back to another episode of ZK Talks. Today, we have one of the most special guests in the ZKsync ecosystem. He is one of the most prominent figure currently in the ZKsync ecosystem because he's building one of the most prominent projects which are trying to bring a lot of liquidity on chain through the ZKsync infrastructure, which is through ADI chain. And without further ado, let's welcome Mr. Andrey Lazorenko from ADI Foundation, which he is the CEO of ADI Foundation, the company behind ADI chain. So yeah, hey, Andrey, how are you?
Good. Thank you for inviting me, and hope to have an interesting conversation today here.
Yes, hope to as well. So before we start, can you introduce yourself and share your personal journey into Web3 and finance overall?
Yeah, sure. So I'm in Web3 space for over 10 years. Originally, I'm Ukrainian, and I started with co-founding the Web3 Dev Studio. It's called Ideasoft. It became over the years one of the largest players in Europe.
Ooh.
We've worked with many large players in Web3 and banking space and other projects. I also was participating as co-founder in KYT company Global Ledger Protocol. It's the Web3 analytics and compliance monitoring engine, which was sold in 2021. And also I'm the co-founder at Orderly Network. It's headless perpdex multi-chain. And now I'm running the ADI Foundation with our mission with the blockchain and with the ecosystem that we're rolling out.
Sorry, I didn't know you were... Sorry, go ahead, Andrey.
Yeah. I mean, that's in short my journey in Web3. And I think the ADI Foundation is currently on the state that it amplifies like a lot of things that we are happening in Web3 space with our mission to bring the real user adoption and bring like lots of millions of people on chain. And it's important to say that we do have a unique setup here around the ADI, like around and within. The foundation is founded by Sirius International, which is a digital arm of IHC, which is one of the largest companies of Middle East. And the ADI Foundation is fully independent entity that oversees the ADI blockchain and the ecosystem. So in ADI, we have three main pillars. We have financial rail with the recently announced and launched digital Dirham stablecoin, which is founded by IHC and the First Abu Dhabi Bank, biggest bank in the region, as well as many other regional stablecoins that are currently in production with all the infrastructure needed to use it within the region, within the country, and abroad as fully international digital payment rail that will consist of many stablecoins and many instruments. And we do have the vertical of tokenization arm, is a company FinStreet within our ecosystem. They are working on tokenization of different classes of assets. They have mutual projects with the BlackRock, with the Franklin Templeton, with local UE construction companies like Adirek and others. So their goal is to unify all this liquidity and to bring it on chain in one like compliant unified layer. And then the identity piece that's supposed to interconnect all of that. That's why the ADI stack we chose the ZKsync Atlas, because from our point of view, for the sovereign chain, this is the most appropriate tech stack to operate in the seamless with programmable compliance way, where we can, for the large use cases that we operate with, such as G2G contracts, B2G, B2B, and so on, enterprise, to give them an ability to deploy their own subchains, which can be fully customizable. So currently we do see on the market the infrastructures, either it's fully open or fully closed. That's why there's kind of a trade-off situation right now for the larger groups that want to have different things and vehicles of their economy put on chain. So we are trying to tackle it by offering these hybrid solutions where you can have permissioned subchain or permissionless subchain with certain on and off chain data, ZK encryption, and so on and so forth. So we share very much the vision of ZKsync with this regard, and that's why we chose their stack to build on top of.
Okay. Thank you, Andrey. It was a complete explanation from you, and I appreciate that. I wanted to touch back on what you said earlier, because I started my journey in the Web3 world as a trader, as we all, and just still trying to become a founder and a developer since over the last 2 years. I'm really curious on what you said before, because you mentioned that you have, I think, 2 projects before you headed the ADI Foundation and ADI Chain. Is that did I hear that correctly?
To be honest, 3 projects, right?
Oh,
3 projects where it was so in Ideasoft we used to run the venture studio, and we were producing different POCs and MVPs. Some of them then turned out to be real companies. I would say 3 large ones. Also, I was participating in a couple M&As. But I used to build companies, scale them, and sell them for last 10 years. And that, I would say, sublimation of all that expertise and experience brought me to AJ.
Whoa, that's really cool. I need to learn a lot from you, honestly, because you're really inspiring me. Because I'm still really young right now. I'm 28, and I'm still trying to become a founder like you with a successful company. But I realized that there's a lot of process into creating a successful company. So yeah, my question is that I wanted to again clarify to the people listening. Can you explain the difference between ADI Chain itself and ADI Foundation? Because I think a lot of people got that mixed up.
So ADI Chain is the blockchain, which is run by ADI Foundation. So ADI Foundation is an organization that runs the product, develops the protocol, and facilitates the growth of the ecosystem. It's very important to differentiate that. So ADI Foundation role here is to run the ADI blockchain with its roadmap and growth plans, as well as facilitate that the ecosystem that has chosen on to perform and live on ADI chain, the projects that are built on ADI chain or joined ADI chain, they complement each other. They have cross collaboration opportunities, cross dependencies, and they're amplifying each other. So our goal is to build the ecosystem play in the way that the products and the projects, they do not exist in silos, and they are united under one ecosystem umbrella.
That's great to hear. So an overall interconnected ecosystem for specifically the MENA region as the main target right now, right?
I would say we're starting with MENA region, but we're targeting the global south. So there are large international projects. So we have launched the mainnet roughly 2 months ago on the 9th of December last year. And that's why I would say we only shown the peak of the iceberg that we're working on for last, I would say, year and a half. And there are many projects that are currently in development and partnerships and integrations that will be rolling out gradually with a coordinated growth of the ecosystem. That's why probably perception is that we're targeting the MENA region first, but we're targeting like the whole global South region with our infrastructure and the products.
Okay, that's great to hear. So a larger market right now. So like that's very ambitious, and I'm really glad to hear that. So from your explanation, my understanding is that you're currently targeting like institutions, but I'm really curious as like a developer myself, trying to become a developer myself, that what can companies, developers, and like retail founders create on ADI chains infrastructure, and how does it correlate to the overall ZK stack from ZKsync? Can people build there if they're
Yeah. So ADI is fully permissionless chain with a stack for the institutions that to build the hybrid subchains. So one of our advantages is that through our partnership network, we're connected to really strong distribution channels. And I think we're fully capable to deliver our mission, which is to bring in 5 years the billion people on chain through different use cases and through the network of our backers and partners. So the advantage of the builders to build and deploy on ADI chain is to have the first mover advantage to join this huge distribution setup. So our main use cases and projects that we're driving as the foundation are more institutional and governmental, but that's because those projects, they do have large credibility within their existing user bases, meaning that for the builders that are coming and deploying the projects on ADI chain, this eventually will become their distribution channels for their products. So that's the strategy point here.
Yeah, that's good to hear, because like currently all of the narrative around ZKsync is more like institutions, especially I don't know if you attended in Denver. Did you attend in Denver? Like
Me no, but we have had the team there. We've had some presence there, and also we have run the first AGI Hackathon during the.
Oh yeah, that was really exciting. I wanted to ask about that later, but like yeah,
Have you been to Denver this year?
Sorry?
Have you been to Denver this year?
No, I didn't get the chance. Honestly, that's why I really kind of felt like I missed out on something, especially since you guys were holding hackathons, because I usually participated in those kind of hackathons. So yeah, what a shame, but like hopefully next year.
There'll be many more. Yes, this year. So that's all within our roadmap.
No.
So
okay, yeah. Nice. Okay, I wanted to talk more about that later, but for now, I think why I mentioned ETH Denver was that because like currently the narrative in ETH Denver was more of privacy, specifically around Ethereum. So privacy and institutional adoption. So I think you guys are like really heading in the right direction, especially with the huge target that you guys are chasing. So I really appreciate you guys are still hustling and just like focus on being more aligned with ZKsync and Ethereum. Just wanted to say that, or just like
I fully agree. So I think that the privacy aspect is very much underdeveloped in the current global infrastructure setup. I do agree that people need more privacy, but it has to be compliant privacy. That's how it correlates with our statements about the programmable compliance aspect of what AEA is building. So we would like to be the chain, the compliant chain that can deliver the compliant elements which we have in our stack to those institutions and to the builders, but still maintain those privacy elements which currently the most of the infrastructure is lacking. So in this way, the user can be private from the data point perspective, or the organization can have certain sensitive data fully privately boxed, but still not give up on the interoperability aspect and the compliance aspect. So currently you might have, if you're a bank, the private chain or closed loop chain, closed loop stablecoins, which will be fully compliant with your privacy, but you will fully lose on the aspect of why do people and organizations and global economy needs blockchain for the global interoperability of the data, and that everything is data now. Money are data, identities data, documents, apps, ownership rights, everything is data. So blockchains are designed for the interoperability of data. If you do full interoperability and on-chain activity of data, obviously you do need the privacy. And you cannot, on the one hand, sustain in silo by running the private chain, because then what's the point of blockchain, in my point of view, at all?
Agreed.
Or an alternative, you cannot run fully on public chain, which will be showing every data transaction on chain. So for these purposes, I think that the Matter Labs team is doing a great job by how they modeled and built the ZKsync Atlas. And exactly this is what I think global adoption was lacking, both from the user standpoint and from the institutional, like large organizational standpoint. So it's useful for the business, makes sense from the interoperability standpoint, amplifies the value, cuts the costs, puts everything in real time. But on the other hand, doesn't compromise on compliance, privacy, security, and all those aspects.
Yes, agree with you there. Basically getting the benefits of blockchain technology and like traditional finance infrastructure, privacy. So yeah.
Exactly. I think that the true adoption is possible only through like large institutional play, because historically people tend to institutions were created because with the purpose that the user groups and people, they trust the institutions and the rule books that they're playing with during their journey. So once you make the product which is accepted by the institutions, you can show the value to them, you can show the value to the end user, then it's where the real interoperability and the real adoption comes into play.
Yes, agree with you there. It's like focusing on banks and institutions with huge money shows like real adoption. Like speaking of banks, I wanted to touch back on what you mentioned before, which is that you guys recently launched the DDSC Stablecoin. And I'm curious, can you like talk more about the initial idea and development behind it? Like how did it start? Why like the UAE Dirham to start with?
First of all, we're hosting. It's really important to mention that AI Chain is hosting the digital Dirham stablecoin. Of course, we help their team to build it and deploy, but it's founded by international holding company and the First Abu Dhabi Bank Consortium as a joint venture. So I think that the Dirham form of stablecoin has huge potential, because UAE currently does have the unique positioning on the global economic space. We've seen literally every month some news that lots of breakthroughs are coming through UAE. UAE positioned very well as a country, as economy, as a narrative, and a society group. Most of innovations, I do believe that in the next decade will happen exactly in UAE. With all the sentiments to the States and the rest of the world, I do see that here things are changing very fast in a very positive direction. And Dirham itself as a currency, in recent years, and it will be more and more, got lots of attention globally, internationally. So then, as the result of the great job done by UAE government and with Dirham and UAE Central Bank, I think that in current world, it makes a lot of sense to distribute Dirham globally on the one hand. On the other hand, to make the Dirham like the most innovative currency from the perspective of connecting it to digital identity pieces, tokenization pieces, etc., etc. And how to do it? You have to have a Dirham in a shape and form which is the most inclusive for the users and people to interact with, buy, sell, trade, use as collateral, create the different financial products, primitives, in the way that it's, on the one hand, fully compliant with the Central Bank of UAE rule book, but on the other hand is very inclusive and easy people to operate with without bureaucracy complications that result on lack of attractiveness of the product or digital dirham in current scenario. And on the other hand, compromise on the compliance. So saying that, for us, it's very logical step to have this as a backbone of the chain that we can distribute globally, as I said, to the countries of Global South. And they can not only perceive the dirham as global currency, but also interact with it. So I think that this is like a step one of the journey. Step two of the journey with mass adoption of the digital dirham currency will be piloting lots of use cases with the digital identity, interoperability, try to create the fully innovative architecture of the financial compliance systems that using the ZK-based digital identity systems, users can have totally different personal level of cybersecurity, user experience by interacting with the products, whether it's banks, fintechs, applications, DeFi, insurance companies, medical companies, etc. And then later on, the adoption of dirham stablecoins, from my point of view, at least in this region, can bring the shift of the business architecture, how it's conducted, meaning that if dirham runs on ADI, identity runs on ADI, with the true mass adoption and penetration it in every aspect of economical lives of people, they can be doing programmable payments, real-time payments, payments which are triggered by smart contracts or later on with AI agents. And for the AI agents, the on-chain is also a trusted source of information, the only trusted source of information, to be honest. And I can speak a lot, but that's the main highlights.
Oh, wow. Thank you for that. I didn't know it spanned that wide, what you're trying to accomplish with the DDSC stablecoin. And that's really interesting to hear, because I didn't expect it to be adopted towards the narrative of digital identity and AI agents, because that's really interesting, because currently that's like, I think the trend is right now, especially with what's happening with OpenClaw and everything. So yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah,
So,
fully agree.
Yeah. In regards to like the use cases of DDSC, I wanted to ask you personally about the goal of the DDSC stablecoin itself. Are you just like trying to, but are you capitalizing on the UAE market itself, or like the overall international remittance regarding the UAE dirham?
I think both. I would say both and not only. So DDSC will be adopted heavily within the region as the payment method and payment instrument. So we're going to see that the banks will be adopting it, merchants, payment systems, and so on and so forth for conventional life, as well as I expect lots of yield generating primitives will be built on top of it or using it, as well as this inclusivity aspect will allow create very effective remittance and import-export corridors globally and abroad. But also, I suspect that there will appear a whole set of financial products that are using the DDSC as collateral within this programmable form. And I think that it's great that we're building the ADI chain EVM with on ZKsync stack, because from my point of view, this is the future of on-chain activity, and lots of users already do have EVM infrastructure, and adoption is so much easier through this EVM angle.
Yes, couldn't agree with you more there, because like studying to become a developer in like the Web3 space, it's really hard to just go out of Solidity and just like run Rust or any other language that are just like confusing outside of EVM. So yeah, I'm glad that you shared the point of view of like being EVM compliant there.
Yeah, for sure. And I just think that on top of what was said, the technology is the way how you deliver your use cases to the end user. So we're not the technology centric, we're a use case centric organization, and we're using technology as the way how to deliver those use cases.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Like, I wanted to clarify for like our listeners, because like there have been a lot of trauma regarding stablecoins, especially algorithmic stablecoins. I know you guys are just like fiat-based stablecoins, but can you like share about the reserve mechanism for like the DDSC itself? Like, how is it backed by the UAE Dirham, and how is it stored, basically?
Yes.
How can you guarantee its stability?
First of all, I think that there have been in the past algorithmic stablecoins that failed, but they failed not because they're algorithmic, but because the algorithm wasn't sustainable or correct enough. We see the example of DAI or Ethena, which have different sustainability formulas. Speaking about the DDSC, so it is fully backed by Dirham fiat cash reserves, which are stored in the custody of the biggest bank of UAE, First Wave Bank. And in this way, we are sure that the stablecoin is always over collateralized.
That's great to hear. So yeah, it's basically stored in the UAE Dirham bank. So that's good to hear. Like,
exactly, yes, because the point is to bring like the adoption and large distribution volumes with the stablecoin. We're not trying to create the maximum yield extraction out of it, simply because the main goal is the distribution and mass adoption. So if you're a builder, yes, you can get the stablecoin, use it as collateral and build on top more risky but more yield generating products. And if it makes sense for the end user with the risk management, it can be great products to use. But the core element, which is a DDSC native stablecoin, it's fully backed by cash reserves.
Nice. That's glad to hear, because like a little bit about myself. I'm sorry for like telling stories about myself. I just wanted to relate to you somehow. But like I studied Islamic economics and finance in university back then, and I was just like trying to create an Islamic financial product in the Web3 space, and haven't found a stablecoin that represents like kind of the Islamic values. And hearing the USD stablecoin, which is backed by Dirham, this is really interesting. I'm kind of planning some things out. So yeah, that's really interesting to hear that it is safe and like people can guarantee its stability and safetiness. So yeah, really
and also international use, because Dirham is pegged with USD, and internationally you can stick to the USD inflation rates and hedge local currencies using Dirham as an alternative. So that's why we do believe that it's a great instrument to be distributed globally.
Yeah, that's what I was actually wanted to ask, but like you kind of already answered it, because I wanted to make sure is like the goal of the DDSC itself is to be only for payments, but also for hedging itself, because like I kind of realized that the UAE Dirham is stable to the US dollar. So yeah, are you guys like targeting the hedging market as well with this?
At some point, yes. I think the audience is like people are very smart, and they have already defined lots of like use cases we have never thought of it. But the value proposition is still there. So remittance, payments, hedging mechanisms, used collateral value, all that is within the stack of the Dirham.
Okay, it's good to hear. Okay, next question. Like, as bringing the UAE Dirham on chain through the DDSC stablecoin is like one of the first successful proofs that the UAE Dirham can be brought on chain. Can you like explain or just like give us information of any parties that are exploring the implementation of the DDSC itself, like teasers or just alpha info?
Yes. So I think some of the use cases are already in the news. Some of them cannot speak about yet, but we are working for some time, and soon they will be announced and published. But for example, we're working close with the M-Pesa team, which is the largest payment system in Africa, and we help them to adopt their own stablecoins on ADI, which will be fully interoperable with the digital dirham, and that will create huge, super effective remittance corridors with the UAE and countries where M-Pesa is heavily presented, as well as few other regional stablecoins that we haven't announced yet, but they're on the way. As well as, for example, the company I mentioned earlier within our ecosystem, FinStreet, that are tokenizing different assets. So they do have joint projects with the BlackRock and Franklin Templeton. They will be deploying the tokenized funds on ADI. And also the digital dirham stablecoin will be used as the stablecoin mechanism with those funds. Also, we are currently exploring the different ways of deployments of tokenized deposits for the banks. And we do have some POCs running. And all that are the use cases. As well as
yeah. Sorry if I'm just kind of digging here because like at the ZKnomis, we're always trying to get the first info on everything around the Elastic Network ecosystem, like the ZKsync ecosystem. So yeah, thank you for giving us information. Like I really wanted to appreciate again what you guys are doing with M-Pesa Africa, because the ZKnomis kind of created a video on that and just like realized how important like the on-chain ecosystem is for people in Africa, because they used to send money using boxes and just like trucks, which are really dangerous, and just like with M-Pesa Africa, they're helping the money transfer, and you guys bringing them on chain is just like helping it a step further, because one of the key benefits of Web3 technology, in my opinion, is like borderless ecosystem, no barriers to entry. Just like I'm really
yes, exactly. Borderless ecosystem, borderless entry, but also the right deployment of the ZK technology allows you to create those private and compliant digital identity pieces, which are inevitable considering the weakness of the personal cybersecurity of current population with the evolvement of AI and internet penetration and digitalization of the society in general. M-Pesa is a great example, a great company to adopt Web3 in the user-friendly UX way for the end users, because they have very young average user base. It's like the average user is 26, 27 years old, like huge user base. So they are very keen to adopt and explore stablecoins, DeFi primitives packaged in the right way, yield products, tokenized products, like all that.
Oh, that's great to hear. I didn't know that. Wow, okay. It's like the overall Web3 ecosystem is filled with like 18 to 35-year-olds. I'm really glad to see like a lot of people my age are still adopting the Web3 trend. So yeah, that's good. Okay, coming back to your ecosystem, I wanted to ask, are you guys implementing a dual token mechanism here with like the DDSC and ADI token itself? Because you already have the ADI token in your infrastructure, like, yeah.
Yeah, you mean as a gas token?
Yep.
Gas function? So currently not yet, but we are thinking maybe later on with different mechanisms. Currently we are more conservative on this side. So currently the gas function can only be executed through ADI token. And there are different mechanisms how you can cater to the institutionals, the clear and understandable for their unit economy way with the gas fee payments through futures contracts for gas, etc., etc. And I wouldn't say that currently we're thinking over the dual mechanism for the gas, but maybe this is something that we will use in the future. Again, our target is to grow the ecosystem steadily in the safe, compliant, like secure, scalable manner. And we're cautiously expanding and growing in order to satisfy our user base, builders, enterprises, and governments we work with.
All right, that's glad to hear. Okay,
so DDSC we just launched, and I think that it's yet to come, the long journey and the definitions whether it will be in the future as a gas alternative or the ADI token will remain the only option for the gas repayments.
All right. Yeah, it's still really early to like determine anything because like you guys still have a long way to go to just like do anything. So yeah. Coming back to the talk that we initially had, which is like the hackathon talk. Can you like share more information? It's like, will there be more campaigns or events that will stimulate the adoption of ADI chain itself? Maybe like through online hackathon?
We'll be doing this year online and offline hackathons. Also, we are on the last stages of preparation of our builders program. It's not announced yet, but I can share with you that we're going to have the builders programs and the syndicate structure in order to accelerate and bring more builders on chain in order to navigate to more complementary ecosystem interactions. And we're 2 months old chain from the deployment date. I would say 1.5 years after we just started. And this all is yet to come, but you are asking the right questions, and yes, it will be there.
Yes.
Can I share more now? But
yeah.
If you will spectate on our socials, you will be the first one to know once we'll be rolling out these things.
Yes, of course. And we will be the ones to just like announce the news because like the ZK is always on top of ADI chain's news. I'm really excited to hear that. Sorry, go ahead.
No, just I said I think our collaboration this year will be pretty close with you.
Yes, thank you for that. Like, rest assured, I will be one of the developers or like builders signing up to your hackathons and just like builders program. Hopefully, it's coming soon. So yeah, just to let her know.
Perfect. I'm already excited to have you on our hackathons.
Thank you. All right. I think that's all the question from me. But like before we close this out, is there anything you would like to add or mention before we end this?
I think that from my point of view, just wanted to recap one more time. So ADI currently has a unique position within the Web3 space and fintech space in general. So it's sovereign chain backed by institutionals, acts fully independently, runs very interoperable tech stack, and will have lots of heavy, large institutional projects to bring this adoption to the game. And if I would be the builder, I would heavily consider ADI as strategic distribution channel for the projects to build on top. That would be what I wanted to share.
Yes, of course. And to add to that, don't forget to follow social medias of ADI Chain and ADI Foundation, of course. But yeah.
Thank you, Nafal. I think we had a great chat, and I'm looking forward to see you within the participants of our hackathons.
Yes, of course. Thank you so much, Andrey. And thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. It really means a lot to us because I really am a fan of you, and I have been like watching closely the development of ADI Chain itself. Really love you guys, what you guys are doing, and love the mission. So I hope the development process keeps on going smoothly. So yeah, thank you so much for your time. Yep. All right. Thank you so much, Andrey.
Thank you, Nafal. See you soon. Bye-bye.